The final prerequisite for algebra is operations on rational numbers. These include integers, fractions, and decimals. And we're not going to use a calculator. First, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting integers. Integers are just positive and negative whole numbers. These are numbers we see on a number line. When adding or subtracting integers, you should think of the number line to help you. When adding, you go to the right, and when subtracting, you go to the left. When you are subtracting a negative, you are really just adding a positive. This is true for integers, decimals, and fractions. Now, when multiplying and dividing integers, you should be able to multiply and divide numbers up to 12 times 12 without a calculator. This takes lots of repetition and practice. Multiplication is basically adding a number to itself a certain number of times, where division is separating a number into groups of another number. Now, when multiplying and dividing two numbers with the same signs, the answer is always positive. When you're multiplying or dividing two numbers with opposite signs, the answer is always negative. This is true for integers, fractions, and decimals. Pause the video and try these examples on your own. Remember to watch your signs. Alright, check your answers. If you have any questions, ask your teacher at this time. Now, when we're adding and subtracting decimals, we want to write the numbers that we're adding and subtracting on top of each other, making sure that we align the decimal points. The decimal points must always stay in a line in the problem and in the answer. You're going to add or subtract each column. When you are subtracting a negative, you are really just adding a positive. This is true for integers, decimals, and fractions. For multiplying and dividing decimals, remember again, when you're multiplying or dividing two numbers the signs are the same, the answer is always positive. When you're multiplying and dividing two numbers with opposite signs, the answer is always negative. When multiplying decimals, you multiply as you would any other numbers by hand. Place the decimal point in the answer. It will have as many decimal places as the original two numbers combined. For dividing decimals, if the divisor is a decimal, move the decimal point to the right to make it a whole number, and move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of places. Do long division, and then put the decimal point directly above the decimal point in the dividend. Here are some examples. Go ahead and pause the video and try these by hand. Remember, no calculators. Alright, if you've tried all of them, check your answers. If you have any questions at this point, make sure you ask your teacher. Now, with adding and subtracting fractions, we're going to check for a common denominator first. We want to find the least common multiple of both numbers and rewrite the fraction as equivalent fractions with the least common multiple as the denominator. If you need to, you can set up a proportion to do this. You're going to add or subtract straight across in the numerators. The denominator carries over to the answer as the denominator. Remember again, when you subtract a negative, you're really just adding a positive. For multiplying and dividing fractions, with multiplication, you multiply straight across. Multiply the numerators, then multiply the denominator, and simplify the fraction. For division, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. This means you're going to flip the fraction upside down. Multiply straight across, multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then simplify the fraction. Again, When you're multiplying or dividing two numbers with the same sign, the answer is always positive. When you're multiplying or dividing two numbers with opposite signs, the answer is always negative. Go ahead and pause the video and try these examples. If you've tried these, go ahead and check your answers. If you have any questions at this point, ask your teacher.